going ultra black. I got a toast to that. We don't fold the crack. We going. Occasion we rose to that. Going postal. We going ultra black. Watching the global change. Hopping the coldest range. Hit boy on the beat. This poster slap. We going ultra black. We going. Rhythm and blues, pop, rock, soul to jazz, till my toes attack. How I look being told I'm not supposed to brag.
KBLA Talk 1580. It is time to get ultra black. It's a Freedman Friday. We do this every Friday, a comprehensive reparations conversation from all perspectives, all schools of thought. Welcome. We need to get better versed on this, and we are doing so. We've been doing this, almost a year and a half, and we're keeping it going. So excited to have with us this morning an author, publisher, a cultural historian, artist, and educational consultant, a graduate of Howard University's College of Fine Arts. He's lectured throughout the United States, Africa, the Caribbean, Mexico, Japan, and Europe on issues related to African and African American history and culture. If you don't have one of his books, you probably will by the time you're done listening to this lecture. Anthony Browder, welcome.
Good morning, Dominique. How are you?
I'm blessed. How are you doing?
I am blessed as well. Happy to be in your fair state and looking forward to ending Black History Month on a favorable note.
On an historical note. How about that?
Absolutely.
We have Chris Lodgson coming next hour to continue going through all of the reparations bills that are now on the table for the state of California. But I think I've seen people arguing back and forth about who deserves credit for reparations and who's using whose idea and all of these kinds of things. And I think those conversations lack historical context. Perhaps you can give us some of that.
Sure. Well, we have to ask the question, what do we want this government or the state to repair? We have to look at the fact that no people in history have gone through what Africans who were enslaved in America have gone through. Separated from land, language, history, culture, forced to adapt to a new environment, forced to be exposed to the most inhumane treatment that any people on this planet have ever experienced. We were given our freedom. We went through integration, as your caller before me was saying, but all of that was a setup to ensure that we were continuously undermined by certain elements within this government. And so it's right to ask that our situation be addressed, but without understanding what's been taken from us is important. And the most important thing that I feel that has been taken from us is our sense of awareness, knowledge of self, our history, our culture, and all of those things that make us more unified as a people. And without having an awareness of what's been taken away and a plan to replace that which was stolen and lost, then we're going to be floundering as we have been. As I've said on several other occasions when I was on this program, that the most important thing that needs to be repaired is our memory. Our memory must be restored. And if the last 4 weeks have not shown us anything, it's that we have to assume responsibility for repairing that which was stolen, that which was taken away, that which was outlawed, because our enemy, our oppressor, is not going to do that for us. And so it begs the question, what are we willing to do to free our minds? And how much of our time are we willing to invest in freeing the minds of others? I think one of the best metaphors that I can give your listeners for this unselfish dedication to freeing minds is that of Sister Harriet Tubman, who freed herself, who was enslaved in a concentration camp on the west coast of Maryland. I don't call them plantations. If you understand the histories of what happened to our people in those environments, in those encampments, you will realize that these were the precursors to the concentration camps that Adolf Hitler said were a little bit too harsh. I mean, if you can imagine that. But Harriet Tubman freed herself and then risked her freedom 19 times to come back into the South, the upper South of Maryland, where she freed her mother, her father, all of her siblings save one. And then during the Civil War, she continued to fight on behalf of the Union Army and freed thousands of other people. And that represents a level of knowledge of self, but more importantly, a level of selflessness in which she was able to devote her own freedom to save others. And that's the spirit that's surely needed right now. And one other important aspect of the restoration of our minds, the recovery of our history, reminds us that we're not just living for ourselves. We should not just be focusing our attention on this particular lifetime. If we understood one central element of African culture, it's that we come back. The life is not a one turn around this Ferris wheel. We come back. There is a continuity to life. And the quality of life that you spend in this lifetime determines the quality of life in future lifetimes, as well as the quality of life along your generational family line. So what you do now, you do for future generations. And once that awareness, that consciousness is fully in place, it shifts the way we respond to things that are done to us, and it gives us a perspective that allows us to look beyond problems and errors and focus our attention on the good that we can manifest that's headed our way in the future.
We got a lot of stuff to unpack in what you just said. Anthony Browder, do you mean literally we come back? You're talking about reincarnation, or are you talking about our generations of our children that carry the patterns of our history in their DNA?
I'm talking both. I am talking both because when you look at ancient African culture, for example, in the Nile Valley, they had a word for what we now in the West call reincarnation. That ancient word is the Rahimi Mesu, or the repetition of the birth. There is a papyrus, the papyrus of Ani, that shows the scene of the weighing of the soul, where this priest, this 19th dynasty priest, is about to step into the hall of Double Ma'at, where his heart, the symbol that represents his soul, is weighed opposite the feather of Ma'at. And there is a figure there who is the figure that represents the rebirth, or what we call reincarnation. Within the text of the ancient Nile Valley, there is this understanding that souls come back. And so that after the fall of Nile Valley civilization, when outsiders came in and took pieces of the corpse of this ancient African body and used those fragments to create religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all have elements within their tenets that speak to the process of reincarnation, of being reborn, of renewal. And so everything within our environment echoes that same sentiment. I'm looking at the sunrise right now. The sun follows a pattern. You can see the same pattern in the phases of the moon. You see the same patterns in the 4 seasons of the year. And so these concepts and ideas have been written out of the respectable commentary of human history, as Dr. Clark often said, but they've been embedded in certain religious teachings such that those who know, those who are aware of the deeper meaning behind some of these sacred teachings, understand the full cycle of life. And so with that understanding, then one is willing to sacrifice their life because they understand that they'll have an opportunity to reap the benefits of those sacrifices. When you look at Malcolm, who willingly sacrificed his life because he knew that there was something beyond, you can understand why he made some of the moves that he did. King, the day before he was assassinated, knew that his life was over, but he also understood that he was giving his life to something greater. And so when you can step back and look at history from a different perspective, a broader perspective, when you can look at history from the benefit of your own cultural lens, then you'll see things, or you'll understand things that our oppressors would never want us to be exposed to, because freedom of the mind is the first step towards freeing the rest of yourself.
When you say, well, we'll look at this when we come forward, Dr. Anthony Browder, when you say that we have the responsibility to repair ourselves, that our oppressor or the person that did did and continue doing the harm is not the one that is going to fix the problem. Does that mean that our government and our businesses and our educational institutions do not owe us reparations? Does that mean that we are letting them off the hook? Anthony Browder will address that when we continue on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique Diprima when we come forward.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, host of The Voice of Reason, weeknights at 7 p.m. here on KBLA Talk 1580, with a personal invitation for you to join me and Insight.me as we present The Healing Box, live at Inglewood's world-famous Miracle Theater, Saturday evening, May 23rd at 7 p.m. Look, I understand your attachment style has been running your life like a rogue algorithm, and nobody has had the courage to press pause. Until now, Dr. Pakoya McCall and yours truly are curating a night where clinicians, spiritualists, and an all-star panel of Black woman healers like Dr. Shalonda Sunshine Crawford, Dr. Jashana Johnson, and spiritualist Precious McGill will join some amazing spoken word artists and the legendary comedian Louis Dix to diagnose, disrupt, and heal your relational wreckage in real time. Listen, bring your trauma. As a matter of fact, bring your baby mama. No, bring your testimony. And if you're still texting your ex at 2 a.m., baby, you're not just invited, you're the target demo. Tickets are moving fast, so grab yours at themiracleinglewood.com before your dating history gets flagged as a pre-existing condition. That's themiracleinglewood.com. We'll see you there Saturday, May 23rd at 7 p.m.
Are you drowning in IRS tax debt? Angela was. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $80,000. Felicia was having health problems, got behind on her taxes, interest and penalties were adding up. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $15,000. Civic Tax Relief is a professional tax negotiation firm that can protect you from the IRS. If you're getting collection letters, call Civic Tax Relief for a free consultation. They will go to work helping you discover all the relief programs you may qualify for free. James owed the IRS $37,000. Civic Tax Relief represented him against the IRS, and by the time everything was completed, he did not owe the IRS anything. If you are in trouble with the IRS, call Civic Tax Relief for your free consultation now. 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257. Get a free consultation and real tax relief. Call 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique Diprima on First Things First.
Anthony Browder is our guest. He's a scholar, an author, and lecturer worldwide. And this is a Freedman Friday, so we tend to focus on reparations. But, we don't tend to. We do focus on reparations. But you put it in a much bigger context. You've taken it all the way back to, almost our origins, and talking about repair in a greater sense in terms of remembrance of our history and reclamation of our mental state. Does that let these institutions off the hook?
No. There is an aspect of life within the universe which everyone should be aware of. Those of us in the African-centered community understand that this fundamental guiding principle of the universe is centered around this concept called Ma'at, truth and justice or righteousness, balance, harmony, order, reciprocity. And that is how everything within the physical and transphysical universe operates. Cause and effect, give and take, yin and yang. For everything that you do, that force is going to cause ripples throughout the universe, and that energy will come back to you. So that being the case, those who are responsible for stealing millions, tens of millions of African men, women, and children over the course of hundreds of years, they're going to have to pay for that. So if they don't give us reparations, if the systems that were responsible for disrupting our lives don't give us reparations, the universe, mine, is going to demand reparations. And I think, my sister, part of what we're seeing with the instability in the world is that happening writ large. There are certain forces that cannot be stopped. So there's certain forces in nature, there's certain political forces and economic forces. And I would hazard a guess that the disruption that we're currently witnessing with this new administration, this neo-Nazi administration, this administration that has a stranglehold on this nation and the world, that's karma. That's reciprocity coming back, because time after time, those in power have had the ability to do the right thing. And they have consistently chosen not to do the right thing. So as a consequence, there are repercussions to be paid for violating certain universal laws, certain humanistic laws. As what we're witnessing now is the setup for a fall that's going to come hard and heavy. And what I'm suggesting with regards to this being Freedom Friday is free your mind enough to know enough about history, to know enough about civilizations that have risen and fallen since the beginning of time, and recognize that this country is on a downward spiral. So if that is happening in real time, then what things should you be doing in order to insulate yourself, your family, and your community? So those are the bigger questions, but our attention is being divided now by focusing on issues that in the long run don't really matter. See, so, 29 years ago, I wrote a book titled Survival Strategies for Africans in America, 13 Steps to Freedom. And I didn't realize it at the time, but that book is a playbook for what's happening right now in 2025. There's certain fundamental principles about life in America and life on earth that we've never been taught as black people, as human beings. And as a consequence of our ignorance to certain fundamental realities, we're suffering. We're squandering our lives. But once you understand that there is an order to this thing called life, and this order manifests itself in specific ways, then by the application of the knowledge of the order within the universe, you can kind of ride this wave of destruction that's headed our way and not be swept away like most people will. But it's a choice that people have to make.
Ride the wave of destruction and not get swept away. Sounds perilous but possible.
Well, absolutely. We've always done it. My sister, look, no people in this country have gone through what African Americans have gone through. Yeah. And the mere fact that we're still here, and we're here in relatively large numbers, and some of us have our mind intact. What accounts for that? There is something within us. There's a spirit, an indomitable spirit that people of a certain consciousness have that allows them to move in such a way that they don't get swept away with the masses. That's the energy, that's the consciousness, that's the history, that's the awareness that I'm saying we have the responsibility of becoming aware of ourselves, incorporating into our lives so that we can live a better life because of the choices that we make. Your oppressor is not going to teach you how to be mentally free, how to be spiritually free. That's not their wheelhouse. That's not what they've ever done. But we're free enough to be able to read, to be able to study, to be able to analyze what we read and pick up the pieces of our fragmented past so that we can determine how we're moving into a future that we will create. So if you're doing that with a cohort of people who also understand what's at play and how to use the energy, the consciousness that we have available to us to use, then you amplify your individual power, and collectively you become a powerful force. That's what circumstances are now forcing many black folk to do. You can't depend on the government to educate you. Then you educate yourself. You educate your children. You create your Saturday academies. You use your barber shops, your beauty shops. You use your churches. You use your fraternities and sororities to create safe spaces where we can educate those minds that are most precious to us. That's what we did when our country was integrated. That's what we did 100 years ago. And we raised brilliant souls as opposed to allowing our children to have their minds impacted by people who know how to minimize their potential for goodness, their potential for fair play. And that's what we're seeing in too many of our communities right now, because we have given up control and responsibility for handling those things that as adults, conscious human beings, we should assume responsibility for. So as things begin to fall apart, there are those who are prepared to pick up the pieces and build black better.
When you say we're concentrating, Anthony Browder, on things that don't matter, are you talking about politics? You're talking about today everyone's saying we're not going to buy anything. What are you referring to?
I'm talking about everything from the Super Bowl to spending habits. And yeah, it's good to spend your money with people who respect you. But do you realize, on one very basic level, how out of sorts do you have to be for someone to tell you not to spend money with someone who hates you? And why would you stop doing it for one day only? I've been saying, we should boycott Christmas. We should boycott the 4th of July. We should boycott Juneteenth. We should not Thanksgiving.
Juneteenth,
we
really?
should not be spending yes, because look, we live in a capitalistic nation, and the only thing these people understand is money. When you hit them in their pocketbooks, hit them hard and heavy, and not just make one day of activities. And this is my personal feeling. Rosa Parks, if she gave up her seat on one day, how effective would that demonstration have been? You've got to show your oppressor how serious you are. You've got to make a commitment to something bigger than yourself. You've got to be willing to sacrifice. And if sacrificing means that you don't patronize an establishment for 1 month or 1 year, that's the sacrifice you have to be willing to make in order for the next generation or two to reap the benefits. And I'm an advocate of a philosophy that one finds in many indigenous cultures, and that is, you have to think, responsible people have to think 7 generations ahead. 7 generations ahead. That's at least 150 years. So if your thoughts, if your speech, if your actions are all designed to yield favorable repercussions 150 years into the future, it means that you are preparing like a people who truly understand what life is all about, right? That's the level of mental and cultural repair that I'm talking about. And when you think and when you function on that level, no enemy will attempt to oppress you.
I know the Yoruba people of West Africa believe that if you cannot name 9 generations of your family, that means you're not mentally stable. For most Black Americans, that's not even possible because, because of what we have experienced, as you say, the Holocaust of our enslavement. So what does that mean to restore our minds?
Well, look, I'm glad you mentioned the Yoruba tradition because we did a presentation in D.C. where I'm based in December. We brought in Wayne Chandler. Wayne Chandler talks about these concepts and ideas. Very, very, very sharp brother. And he referenced an article that was written by a Yoruba priest who talked about the concept of reincarnation. And his interpretation of reincarnation allowed me to shift my consciousness as well. He said that in the Yoruba tradition, there is knowledge, there is an awareness that we come back, right, the Rehemi Mesu. But he said that their interpretation of returning is different than it is in the East, in India, in that you don't come back in a different caste or you don't come back as a different race. He said that the teachings within their culture say that you come back within the same genetic family, along the same genetic line. So in that context, one would be given a name Olatunji, which means the father has returned, as a confirmation that the soul that has been reborn is the soul of someone who left a generation or two ago. So you see life as one continuum. And if it is one continuum, then the souls that we're encountering now were souls that we encountered in the previous lifetime. I know this sounds very abstract to someone who really can't grasp these concepts, but if you see life as a continuum, it makes sense. And so if you know that a person who has come back was your grandfather, you know your grandfather's name, you know your grandfather's profession. So as that child is being nurtured within the society, you know what name to give that child. You know what profession to steer that child for, because this life will be a continuum of the life that he lived previously. So you fit into a society that already has things for you to do. Right, so that guarantees that certain information, certain knowledge will be passed down from generation to generation. So for the tradition, the Yoruba tradition that you shared at the top of this segment, for you not to know where in the continuum you are is detrimental to the continuum itself. So the society, the entire society, has a vested interest in making sure that things are in place so that there is a cultural continuity that flows throughout multiple generations. And with that cultural continuity, you can go anywhere in the world and rise to the top because you know that who you are is more than just this individual self.
We got news, traffic, and sports right here. Our guest is Anthony Browder. Some folks got questions for you in the chat. We're talking reparations. It's a Freedman Friday, but looking at the very big picture. Got to do that. KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to here with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry is considering delaying the state's upcoming primary after the Supreme Court tossed the current congressional map. House Speaker Mike Johnson agrees a delay may be necessary.
The governor has no choice but to suspend it because the courts just ruled our map unconstitutional.
Absentee voting is already underway and early voting is set to begin. A new Supreme Court ruling limiting the use of race in redistricting isn't expected to affect California's congressional maps. Experts say the state's lines will likely remain intact, though the decision could trigger redistricting fights elsewhere and shift House seats nationwide. And Tiana Taylor turned an onstage glitch into a moment at the Billboard Women in Music Awards. A teleprompter error briefly sent her off stage, but she returned moments later for a heartfelt speech, joking about the mishap. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Interesting decision facing Lakers head coach J.J. Redick for Game 6 tonight in Houston. Should he return Austin Reeves to the starting lineup or bring him off the bench and keep Luke Kennard as a starter? Reeves had a strong game Wednesday night in the Lakers' loss in Game 5, 22 points in 34 minutes off the bench. It was his first game since April 2nd. After averaging 21.3 points in the first 3 games against Houston, Kennard has scored only 8 points combined in the last 2. He also hasn't made a 3-pointer since Game 3. The Lakers need everybody on point tonight to avoid coming back to L.A. Sunday for Game 7. Tonight at 6, it's your Friday night sports fix. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough for Out of Bounds. 60 minutes of sports chatter with some black folks flavor. You can hang out with us on the KBLA YouTube channel or hit us up at 1-800-920-1580. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Where the overlooked become unmissable. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, I'm Fred Martin, founder of Compton Kids Club. I just want to talk about the authenticity and tell y'all about my homeboy, Tom Steyer. Tom is a rock star. When I met him, Tom gave a grant to schools in San Francisco. All the kids were on probation. We were flying instructors for 2 years to come and help those kids doing performing arts and turning their life around. Some of the kids that he supported, they've graduated from UCLA. Let's fast forward. Tom is in schools in Compton, hanging out with the kids in the piano classes. Brother Tom Steyer hangs out in the studio with us. These are the seeds that he's planted. This has nothing to do with elections. What's coming out of his mouth is not a campaign speech. It's authentic, and when he say he walks away from a business because he want to do his values, he ain't making that up because he's running for governor. This man is real.
Ad paid for by Steyer for Governor 2026.
The joint will be jumping.
Ebony Repertory Theater, in association with Fig Street Films, brings you one of the most beloved musicals of all time. Tony Award winner, Ain't Misbehavin'. The soulful, swinging celebration of the music of Fats Waller. From the rollicking to the romantic, this show is pure magic, full of the songs that defined an era and the voices that'll make you forget everything else for a night. Foot-stomping, heart-stirring, unforgettable. Don't miss Ain't Misbehavin' at the Nate Holden Performing Arts Center, starring Lettucey, directed by Ren T. Brown. This is the night out you've been waiting for. Tickets are going fast, so don't wait. Grab yours now at ebonyrep.org or call the box office today at 323-964-9766. Ebony Repertory Theater, bringing the culture, keeping the legacy alive.
Ain't Misbehavin' runs May 21st through June 8th at the Nate Holden Performing Arts Center. Get your tickets now.
Lots of places can expose you to identity theft.
Oh, no.
That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats to your identity, which is way more than anyone can do on their own. If we find anything suspicious, like new loans or changes to your financial accounts, we alert you right away, all through text, phone, email, or the LifeLock app. Get the alerts that could make all the difference. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS at LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
There's a lot of uncertainty in the world right now. Things are changing fast and no one knows what comes next. Times like these make you realize just how important it is to be prepared. That's where My Patriot Supply comes in. They're America's #1 most trusted resource for survival food, solar power, water filtration systems, and more. Go to preparewithamerica.com to unlock a special offer that'll help you get ready for whatever comes our way. Go to preparewithamerica.com to see the special offer right now. That's preparewithamerica.com.
Anthony Browder, a lot of people are talking in the chat about the Browder files. They know the book, but he's done so many other things, including being the first African American to fund and coordinate an archaeological dig in Egypt. He's done 23 archaeological missions to Egypt since 2009, written numerous books, and of course lectured worldwide. So let's see, in the chat, they're talking about a lot of things. Friday Jones says you can trace 9 generations of your ancestors if you're an African American. Seems like it would be challenging. You'd probably be back in the motherland, or you'd be on an early concentration camp. But I think the quest would be worthwhile regardless.
Absolutely. And there are some families here in the United States that can trace their family back multiple generations, but I would hazard a guess and say 95% of us can't, because we don't have the records, or we weren't blessed, and I use that in air quotes, to have a white member of the family that kept that end of the family line intact. Most of the people that I know that can trace their family back multiple generations can do so because they had a white family member and they kept the records, and they had resources that made it possible for their descendants to be better educated, so that they understood the value of knowing your heritage. But the interesting thing is there's certain things that we can't do. I can only trace my family history back, I think, about 5 generations before I run into a brick wall. But what I can do is I can go back to the continent. I can read about different cultures on the continent. I can assume the responsibility for expanding my mind. And while many of us don't know exactly where in Africa we came from, then we have the benefit of embracing all of Africa. I'm blessed in that, I have taken the DNA test from African ancestry, so I know where my maternal and paternal ancestral roots are from. But to be able to dive deeper and do the work that I've done in Egypt with the excavations has allowed me to gain a deeper understanding of Nile Valley culture and civilization. And what has really rewarded me in that endeavor of 44 years now is to find in Kemet, in Egypt right now, evidence of Sankofa symbols painted on the ceiling of 2 ancient tombs, the 25th Dynasty tomb and the 26th Dynasty tomb. And then to be able to trace the origin of that symbol deeper into Kush, into 17th century BC Kush, and then to be able to find painted on a piece of pottery that is 200, that was made in 250 AD, the Sankofa bird. And then to be able to put the pieces of our historical puzzle together and track the migration of African people and knowledge from the Nile River Valley to the Niger River Valley, and then be able to see when that same symbol shows up in Ghana and the Ivory Coast in the 19th century. That's important. That's fascinating. And then to see that with our theft and enslavement, with the Ma'afa, we aren't allowed to bring that knowledge with us when we're torn away from our homeland and in prison here in the United States of America. But that knowledge is in our DNA, my sister. So when we read, when we begin to take an active interest in wanting to restore that which was illegal and taken away, I feel very strongly, based on something that my friend out here in California, Dr. Richard King, often talked about, we then animate the genius within our genetic memory, within our genes. And these ancestors begin to come alive, so to speak, and speak to us. That's what some of our most brilliant minds have done. That's what Carter G. Woodson did. That's what George Washington Carver did. And so that's an innate capacity that we all have as human beings. And learning that you have that, and then learning how to cultivate that capacity, that hidden capacity within you, makes it easier for us to deal with what's come our way and what is coming our way. And that's one of the means by which we've been able to survive and thrive as a people on this continent for so long.
Rest in peace to Dr. King. He was my teacher at San Francisco State University, and he is the one who changed my life because his class made me look at things, and I'm the daughter of activists, but his class made me think of things differently and reconnect with with that DNA, like you said, activate my ancestral heritage on a cellular level. Kwamel Allah wants to know, what are Black conscious groups like Moore Science Temple, RBG, 5% doing wrong in modern times?
That's a good question. Well, let me start off. What are they doing right? What they're doing right is letting their practitioners know that there's a greater story out here that you have a responsibility to become aware of. All of us are mentally and culturally and spiritually damaged. That's not an accident. So to be engaged in the process of restoring your memory is the first step towards permanent and lasting freedom. So what these organizations do is give you a glimpse beyond the curtain to let you know that there's something there. Now, what I'm always encouraging, young people to do, young people who have begun a course of self-study, is to realize that nobody knows everything, right? To be humble in your pursuit of knowledge and be willing to accept the fact that you're going to change. Change is one of the most fundamental aspects of life. Change involves evolution, right? Revolution. So allow yourself the flexibility to grow and change. The things that I believed when I was 25, I no longer believe when I was 35, right? And so that's one of the joys of life. That's one of the reasons why we're here. We're here, as Brother James Small often says, we're here as spiritual beings having a human experience in order to grow, in order to improve on this journey of life. And to the extent to which we realize that and use our time, our talent, and our treasure to maximize our growth is the extent to which we will benefit from continued growth or accelerated growth when we come back. Right? So that's the beauty that I really want people to grab onto. It's not just about this life. It's for the lives that you will live in the future. And the quality of those lives is dependent on the things that you're doing right now. I think it was Martin Luther King who said that if a person has not found something that they're willing to give their life for, they have not found a reason to live. So it's knowing that your life is part of a continuum, and knowing that you have the capacity to determine the quality of your future lives based on what you do in this life right now is probably one of the most important and powerful realizations that a person could ever have. But your oppressor would never teach you that. right? Because they can't control you. If you have peeked behind the curtain and realized that there's much more to life than what they've ever taught you. But once you're grounded in those realities, then your one-day boycott can easily become a 365-day or 380-day boycott, because you see the bigger picture, you understand your power. And if you have the privilege to work together with other people who have like understanding, similar understanding, you amplify your power and you become a force that your enemy would dare not try to challenge, because they know they can't compete against you. That's what we're moving towards. But we have to go through a continued growth process before we get there in significant numbers in order to make a meaningful and lasting change.
Critical mass of consciousness is really what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We're talking with Anthony Browder. We'll continue the conversation when we come forward, only on a Freedman Friday, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I feel so alone.
I'm embarrassed to talk about it.
How can I help my kid if I can't help myself?
I can't remember when I wasn't stressed. I don't like it inside. When you feel overwhelmed by your thoughts and emotions, it's okay to get help. You are not alone. CalHope is here for you with free, safe, and confidential mental health resources for youth, young adults, families, and you. Find support now at calhope.org.
Your ancestors' favorite radio station, and your favorite morning show host. Let's get back to Dominique Diprima right now.
You better work. She's rooted in culture and rising in power. Los Angeles City Council member Karen D. Price Jr. invites you to the District 9 Women's Leadership Summit, a powerful gathering celebrating the women who shape our communities. Join us Sunday, May 3rd from 1 to 6 p.m. Registration is open now, but space is limited. District 9 residents receive special priority. This event is free. Call 323-846-2651 to reserve your spot. That's 323-846-2651. Be rooted, be powerful, be there.
Getting around LA doesn't have to cost a lot. Metro has fares that fit every budget. 20 free rides for qualified riders through the Life Fare program. Free passes for students with GoPass, and affordable options for everyone in between. Wherever you're going, Metro's got you covered. Visit metro.net/fare programs.
My name is Cynthia Mitchell. I've been an emergency room nurse in Los Angeles County for 25 years. I've been there through every fire season, every outbreak, every earthquake. Every time Los Angeles needed us, the doctors and nurses of Los Angeles County showed up. And right now, I'm seeing another disaster coming. Trump's cuts to Los Angeles County's healthcare system are a public health crisis in the making. Medi-Cal, public hospitals, disaster preparedness are all at risk, but we can stop it. Measure ER fights back against these cuts. For a half a penny, we keep emergency rooms open, care within reach for working families, and doctors and nurses serving the communities we love. When you vote yes on Measure ER, you're not just voting for healthcare, you're voting for LA. Vote yes on Measure ER by June 2nd.
Ad paid for by Yes on ER, Restore Healthcare for Angelinos, sponsored by St. John's Community Health and Health Justice Action Fund. Ad committee top funder, St. John's Community Health.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Tired of being locked out of job opportunities and shut down by systemic racism? KBLA Talk 1580 stands with you in fighting for the rights of black workers, and we don't black down. The Los Angeles Black Workers Center is a dynamic alliance of workers, organized labor, community-based organizations, clergy, students, and scholars working collectively to improve the position of the black working class. The LA Black Workers Center takes a comprehensive approach to addressing the black jobs crisis. Their programs promote access to quality jobs, racial equity in hiring and retention, discrimination-free job sites, and they prepare black workers for employment in high-wage career track jobs. The LA Black Workers Center supports workers who need help protecting their rights on the job. They give workers access to quality jobs and remove systemic barriers to employment. And they are advocating for a fair deal for black workers in the new Los Angeles City Charter. To sign up for free career readiness training, get involved in organizing, or learn about union apprenticeship programs, programs, and trade registries, please visit lablackworkercenter.org. That's lablackworkercenter.org. Together, we can beat the black jobs crisis and build a more equitable Los Angeles. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. At the heart of the Al Wooten Center's mission for good citizenship and academic excellence is a desire to ensure that every student avoids the kind of lifestyle and overcomes the kinds of challenges that led to the murder of Al Wooten Jr. In 1990, founder Myrtle Faye Rumpf opened the center in honor of her son's life. In 2026, they are serving more than 300 students in grades 3 through 12 annually online and on site at their youth center and other sites in the South LA area. The Al Wooten Jr. Youth Center takes a neighborhood approach to the revitalization and empowerment of a community in crisis. The Wooten Center provides free after-school and summer programs to help students in grades 3 through 12 attain grade-level proficiency and promotion, high school graduation, and college and career access and success. The Al Wooten Center focuses on academics, STEM, the arts, and so much more. Join them for an enriching experience that sparks creativity and nurtures young minds. Tap in at wootencenter.org. That's wootencenter.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Did you know about 1 in 3 people with plaque psoriasis may also develop psoriatic arthritis, which causes joint pain, stiffness, and swelling? Does this sound like you? Listen to what it sounds like to be a million miles away. Tremfya, guselkumab, taken by injection, is a prescription medicine for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis who may benefit from taking injections or pills or phototherapy, and for adults with active psoriatic arthritis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Imagine being a million miles away. Explore what's possible. Ask your doctor about Tremfya. Visit tremfya.com or call 1-800-526-7736.
Heard any other talk radio lately that sounds anything like this? We didn't think so. You're listening to Unapologetically Progressive KBLA Talk 1580. This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate loses and love wins.
And we're talking with Anthony Browder. It is my honor and my pleasure to do so. It's a big picture conversation, and I do think we've spent a lot of time talking about, on this show, on Freedman Friday, talking about cash reparations, cut the check. I venture to guess that you're not against that, Anthony Browder.
No, I'm not against that, but that requires someone else to write the check. You know, and you've got to go to their facility in order to get the money, get the funds, if they are in the bank account. But I'm saying that there are things that we can do as individuals, we can do as families. There are things that we must do because, my sister, we are witnessing the disintegration of American society as we know it. Things will never be the same again. We have to accept that reality. So as we are moving into a rapidly changing society, what are you doing right now to ensure that you can survive and that you can help your family thrive? These are personal responsibilities that we've got to take on right now, and many of us have not been prepared to handle what's coming responsibly. So, you know, I suggest to my friends that we spend less time talking about the current occupant of the White House and start making plans about what we can do within our own houses. We've got power that we have access to. And as I've said on other occasions, we've got to reevaluate our relationship with the religions that were given to us by our oppressors, because we've always been calling on their guides to help us, and we're in worse shape now than we were in 50 years ago, 75 years ago. So maybe it's time to reevaluate our relationship with spirit. And if we do that, we will find that we have access to a spiritual reserve that we never knew existed. And when we understand the power of acknowledging our ancestors, right, we understand the benefit of setting up an altar in our home, and then going to that space, that sacred, that space that we have sanctified, because we understand that that space is the ancestor portal for Big Mama or people that you knew and that you know loved you, and you can appeal to them for inspiration, for guidance, for protection. That's how this thing really works. And once you understand who your ancestors are and the power associated with ancestral acknowledgement, not ancestral worship, but ancestral acknowledgement, then they become the vessels through which we can live and breathe and do our best work. That's how the process has always happened. Let me just share this quick revelation I had the other day. I was listening to somebody talk about the Renaissance and how important the Renaissance was for Europe coming out of the Dark Ages. Well, the word Renaissance literally means rebirth. Rebirth. And what they were validating is the rebirth of a spirit, the rebirth of a consciousness, which pulled them out of the Dark Ages and set the stage for them to become an industrial and powerful people. So this rebirth is the Rahimi Mesu that I've been talking about, remembering your ancestors. And the knowledge and the power associated with their lives is now accessible to you, right? And then you gain an understanding of how to use that knowledge in 2025. You're not going to use it the same way it was used in 1955 because things have changed. So you apply, you adapt to the change so that you can become a better you. And again, when people of like minds are working together, you amplify this work. And you're able to do more with less, and you are able to witness the power that you've always had. The times that we're living in are going to move us towards this inflection point where more people will begin to wake up and courageously seek, tap into, and develop that power that is always live within us, and that will be our salvation, sister.
You know, it's funny, Anthony Browder, because one of the things that I find most powerful about the modern reparations movement and the iterations of it that young people have brought forth is that that delving into our ancestry, whether you want to call it lineage or whatever you want to call it, and even though maybe it's brought in some cases division from Africa, there's a specificity that's super important. I mean, yes, we're Africans. Yes, we're all descendants of the motherland, even if you're not black. But this idea that Black American ancestors deserve their own light and that they deserve the specificity of us going back and honoring them and their struggles and giving gratitude for what they have endured and in allowing us to be here is really, really important, I think, for our mental health and in our strength. And so, just hearing you say that, it reinforces my belief in that. It's interesting, though, that we've been sort of taught through some Christian schools of thought that looking at our ancestors, acknowledging our ancestors, or even worshiping them is devilish. And yet every other society has the coat of arms. You know, you go to the nail salon, they got candles and stuff and pictures up for their ancestors. Every other culture honors their ancestors, but we've been taught that it's devilish.
So, in other words, and that's a prime example of the need to unlearn what you've been taught by your oppressor and plug into those things that add value to your life. You know, even though certain religions would tell you that ancestral worship is evil, they worship their ancestors all the time. You know, the apostles are ancestors. Jesus is an ancestor. You have in the Catholic tradition All Saints Day and All Souls Day. So they disguise it under a different language, if you will, but it all boils down to acknowledgement of those souls who are no longer living, whose memory restores something in your DNA and gives you the courage to do seemingly insurmountable things. That's how we as human beings have functioned for hundreds of thousands of years, and that's what's more important. To one extent, sister, you know, we need to jettison these labels because the labels don't serve us well. They only serve to set us back. And when you understand that as Homo sapiens, as a thinking person, a person with consciousness and the ability to know that you have the capacity to think and to realize that everything within the universe in which we live and function operates off of the principle of thought. So as Dr. Carter G. Woodson encouraged us, if you can control your thinking, right, you don't have to worry about your actions. You determine your actions. So we have the capacity as human beings, and that's why the study of history enthralls me so. We see what we can do when we really manifest the full power of our humanity. Right? We can build some incredible things. We can create empires that will last for thousands of years when we allow ourselves to be who we were designed to be. We're here as creators, right? And when we accept that and when we allow ourselves to bring into manifestation those things that will improve our lives, our family lives, our community lives, we transform the world. Right, that's the essence of who we are as African people, and that's the gift that we have consistently given to the world. So I think as we see the decline of America, the disintegration of America's social systems as we have always known them throughout our lives, this is a perfect opportunity to step up and to manifest the best expression of you today, so that you can do something to transform your personal life, your life of your family, and the life of your community. So if nothing else comes out of this, then the realization among a subset of people that they have the power within them to make their lives better will make it all better in the long run. And I think that's where we're headed, my sister.
I'm going to ask you a two-part question because we only have a couple minutes left, and I would like to see if you can address both of these things. You said labels. Sure. We need to move away from labels. I wasn't sure which labels you were talking about, but I feel like we don't talk enough when we speak on reparations. You've talked about spiritual repair. We don't talk about the mental, spiritual, emotional repair and the consciousness repair. So I'm hoping you could go a little deeper into that.
Yeah, well, the essence of what we're dealing with is consciousness. It's consciousness. We have unlimited potential within our consciousness, but our awareness of who we are, what we are, has been constricted by those who are responsible for miseducating us. So we have to do, as Carter G. Woodson said, we have to re-educate ourselves. And what I have found is that by grounding yourself in history and culture of Africa, the real Africa, not the Africa that's been misinterpreted by others, you'll find something that will resonate with your spirit. And when you do that, when you find that thing, it opens up your capacity to commune, if you will, with the ancestral memories that you carry with you. And there's a direct correlation between one's ability to ground yourself in your history and culture and mental illness. I've had, we talked about Dr. Richard King, the psychiatrist. I've had conversations with him, Dr. Welsing, and another psychiatrist in Baltimore, Dr. Patricia Newton. And they said that one of the reasons why African Americans have such a high incidence of schizophrenia is because we don't understand that these voices we hear, these personalities that we may feel within us, are different expressions of genetic memory. So by engaging in certain, rituals and having an understanding of how all of these worlds meld together allows you to navigate these worlds and achieve greatness or empowerment at whatever phase you are in the process. And we're beginning to talk about that more frequently, so that allows me to believe that things will get better for those who are willing to be engaged in the process and not be afraid or intimidated by others who would keep us in the dark.
Well said. Anthony Browder, we just have a minute here, so I want to hand you the mic and let you leave us where you'd like to leave us.
Know yourself. Don't be afraid to read and study. And the reading and studying, the awareness itself is not something that should be just limited to 1 month out of the year. We're the oldest people on the planet. We have the longest record of human accomplishments. Familiarize yourself with that. Know yourself, empower yourself, and you will ultimately be free.
And
that's my blessing to you.
Absolutely. I know we can find your books on Amazon, at a local black bookstore. Do you want to give out any other information for online encountering of you?
Sure. You can go to our website, ikg-info.com, ikg-info.com. Find out about our activities, our books, presentations, and I look forward to seeing you all sometime in the near future. Thank you so much, my sister.
Oh, Anthony Browder, appreciate you spending the hour with us. Absolutely. What a great way to do our Freedman Friday on this day. We're being joined by CJEC's Chris Lodson next hour.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. The Federal Reserve is holding interest rates steady in what may be his final press briefing as chair. Jerome Powell said the economy is growing at a solid pace, but warned the war with Iran is adding uncertainty.
Developments in the Middle East are contributing to a high level of uncertainty.